Today we have a 95 Ford Explorer. We are going to replace the radiator. The radiator has actually begun to leak transmission fluid from the transmission cooler into the cooling system, so we need to get it replaced as soon as we can to keep further damage from happening to the cooling system. Okay, now the problem with this vehicle is that the transmission cooler is actually gone bad and it's leaking transmission fluid into the coolant. You can see here it's got this thick sludge which inside the overflow reservoir, which is actually a mixture of transmission fluid and coolant. It's actually a pretty rare problem to happen, but when it does happen you want to get it fixed right away because otherwise you're getting all this transmission fluid into the radiator, and if you leave it in there too long it'll hurt all the rubber systems. It'll hurt the hoses, it'll hurt every seal in there. So you want to get it fixed as soon as possible. So the only way to do that is to go ahead and replace the radiator. So we'll go ahead and do that. First step, we're going to clear the air intake hose out of our way. Real simple, just loosen that up. Pop these off here. Disconnect the mass airflow, and this whole tube comes right out. Okay, we're also going to replace the thermostat while we're in here. Reason for that, there is a rubber seal on the thermostat, and if that's gotten contaminated with transmission fluid, that can cause the thermostat to not work properly. So we got the hose out of the way. First thing we're going to do is go ahead and break loose the fan clutch, and then we will just start taking stuff out of our way until we get down to the radiator. Okay, first of all we need to get the fan off of here, and to do that we need to get the fan clutch broke loose from the water pump pulley. They do make specialized tools to do this, or an old trick is you just take a long chisel or something flat, you put it right on the edge of the fan clutch bolt there, and you just tap it a few times with a hammer, and then it should break it loose. Once it breaks loose, you can just spin it all the way off, and then the fan will come off. We need the fan off to get the fan shroud out of the way. There we go. Now we just need to take the two bolts off for the fan shroud, which is here and on the other side, and then the fan and shroud will come out. We have the two fan shroud bolts out. The bottom half is just held in with clips. So once you get those bolts out, just pull straight up on it. Then you can pull the fan and shroud out together. Alright, we now have full access to the radiator hoses. We got the upper radiator hose here, lower radiator hose is down here. Before I take those off though, we're going to go ahead and drain the cooling system, or let it start draining. The drain valve is down here at the bottom. All you have to do is loosen that up, and it'll start draining. Now make sure you have a catch pan underneath there to catch all this. Now this can sometimes take a while, so we'll let it go ahead and drain fully. Alright, we've got most of the radiator drained. We're going to go ahead and leave the drain open and the catch pan under there, because as we disconnect other stuff, there might be a little bit more that wants to drain out of there. Next step, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the upper radiator hose. Oh, wow. Alright, we're going to go ahead and loosen the lower radiator hose. I went ahead and stop back up the radiator drain, because now it's going to drip out of this side. Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, this thing's going to need a good coolant flush after after we're done here. All that goop coming out is a mixture of transmission fluid and coolant. That is not good to see. Wow. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and just disconnect our transmission lines. You have these 5/8 lines going into the radiator here. All right, we got our transmission lines off. We got our lower radiator hose disconnected, the upper radiator hose. We got the fan off and the fan shroud off. All that's left to do is unbolt the 2 bolts on top of the radiator here, and then the radiator should just slide right out. Radiator's out, so we'll go prepare our new radiator to put in. All right, we have our brand new radiator here. There's a couple steps we need to do, well really one step before we put it in. You can look at the old one and see that these Fords, they use these little adapters on the radiator for the transmission line. Now you look at our new one and you'll see that there's not one in it. The radiator actually comes with 4 adapters. 2, you look at the difference here. You can see 2 of them have a smaller thread, 2 of them have a bigger thread. So the reason they do that, some of the Fords use the smaller, some use the bigger. All you need to do is compare it with what's already in the car. This one had the big hole, so we'll set the 2 small ones aside. These thread directly into here. And we'll just tighten those down. They don't have to be real tight. They do have that thread sealer already on the threads of it. So we'll go ahead and put those in and tighten them down with a wrench, and then we'll put our radiator in. All right, so our radiator's all prepped and ready to go. We're gonna go ahead and slide it back down into place. You can see on the bottom here, it just sits on these little perches. And it sits in there just like so. So we'll go ahead and put the 2 bolts back in the top. Next, we'll go ahead and reinstall our transmission lines. Before I reconnect the lower radiator hose, I'm going to go ahead and change the thermostat. When I pull the thermostat out, we might get some more additional coolant and tranny fluid mix coming out of there. So we'll go ahead and do that before I reconnect it, because I'm going to try to keep as much of that sludge from getting into the new radiator as we can. Alright, we're going to go ahead and disconnect the belt. All you have to do is take a ratchet, put it in the tensioner, pull up on it, and pop the belt off. The reason I'm doing that is I'm going to take this pulley off, which will give us a little bit more room to get to the thermostat. Alright, there's 3 bolts on the thermostat housing to disconnect. We'll go ahead and take all 3 of these out. There's one underneath the housing that you can't really see too well. Got all 3 of the bolts out. Now all you have to do is pull the... Oh! There it goes. Yep. like I said, okay. Well, anyway, now we can go ahead and pull our thermostat housing out. And again, that's full of more sludge. So yeah, this car is definitely going to need a full coolant flush after we're done with her. And then just pop the thermostat out. Wow. All right, we got our old thermostat out. You can see that thing was definitely in poor shape. Got my surface cleaned up on the as best as I could on the mounting bracket here. We got our new thermostat. Now these have a little vent hole in the top of them. You want that vent hole to be at the top when you install it. That lets the air bleed out of the system as you refill it. So we'll just take it, pop it in place, make sure that vent hole's at the top. And all we have to do is put the housing back on and bolt it back in place. All right, we're gonna go ahead and put our low radiator hose back on. We've already got our transmission lines in and tight. Let's double check them one more time. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and put our pulley back on. And you got it on there, just need to tighten it down. And I'm just going to go through and put everything back on the way it came off. All right, we got everything back together. All we have left to do is top off the antifreeze. Now this funnel is called I call it a burping funnel. We got it from autopartsdirect2.com. It makes filling up and burping a cooling system much easier, mainly because it gives the coolant room to expand as the thermostat's still waiting to open. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start adding some coolant. We're going to go ahead and fill this up until this thing stops bubbling, and then we'll start the engine and let it run for a bit. Alright, we got the truck running again. Right now we've got the coolant bleeding off, or as I like to call it, burping it. It gets all the air out of the system, so we'll leave this funnel on until the coolant reaches its full temperature range. We're just going to keep an eye on it, make sure nothing's leaking. Got to double check our transmission fluid level, and then after that everything's topped off and we're good to go on it. So just keep autopartsdirect2.com in mind next time you need some parts. They really got us some great prices on this radiator, as well as the thermostat and gasket. So thank you for watching.